What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Musa Gaming here, and today I want to talk to you about the complete Cavalry guide for Rise of Kingdoms as of April of 2025. Now, this is a content that I actually did back when I first made the channel in January, towards the later part of January, and you see that my very first video that I posted was the complete Cavalry guide for Rise of Kingdoms as of January 2025. So, and the reason why I'm doing this again is, for one, there was some update on the rally side of things because Subutai is now released into the game, and that will change a whole lot for Season of Conquest. And two, I think I got better at making the videos as well as talking in front of camera, not in front of the camera, but in front of mic. So I thought I'll be able to provide better insights on those in terms of how I talk through like what I want to say about those things. So that's why I'm making this update. Again, one, there's a change in meta for Cavalry a little bit towards the end of the game, and also at the same time, I thought I can kind of wrap this thing better for delivery to you who are watching this video. Now, with that said, in this video, I'll be taking a look at every single stages of the game for Cavalry. So, for example, if you're in KvK 1 for Cavalry, boom, there'll be a section in the video for that, for me to actually go over what you should be using or what you should be aiming for at the end of the day in terms of the best marches, best equipment sets, and like how well you stand against other troop types in terms of equipment, armaments, open field, rally, garrison, and overall. And that I did that for KvK 2 and Season of Conquest, and then I'll wrap it up in an overall summary. And in this video, I'll be making live updates on those report cards. As I said, there has been some updates to the rankings that I would give for Season of Conquest and Cavalry report cards final. So you'll be able to see that update made live to this spreadsheet as I go over this guide. Now, with that said, let's just jump right into the pre-KvK stage for Cavalry. Now, pre-KvK stage for Cavalry is interesting because, for one, Cavalry actually has one of the best equipment sets that you can use in the early game stage. And that is because of these Vanguard set that you can actually get, which is the weapon and the leg piece for Cavalry, which gives you like, I think like 9% or something, some crazy amount of stats for being a green piece. And a lot of people actually, and those are set pieces, so you get like tremendous amount of stats on top of having the set bonus at green level, and it gives you health too, which is crazy. So that's why a lot of people, actually myself included, start from Vanguard set and actually jump right into legendary weapon and legs, because I'll go over it in a bit. But then again, legendary sets for legendary legs, which is the Ash of the Dawn, for Cavalry is actually very accessible because of Lucerne Squirrel. But with that said, Cavalry actually has the S rank. Let's actually first go over a little bit of how the ranking system works. So S means that best among all unit types. This is like, if you have S rank, that means that other troop types such as infantry and archer will not be able to have S tier, because of the fact that, hey, like, it's S tier. There's only one troop type that can have S tier in one element for this stage of the game. And for Cavalry, Cavalry has the best equipment in the game for early part of the game. So Cavalry's equipment is actually S tier because of the Vanguard set, and because how powerful they are, and because how accessible they are, and how easy it is for them to actually transition from Vanguard set to actually the Ash of the Dawn, which will give you a ton of Cavalry health. So beginner, you can basically get all green set except for the shoes. I think you can actually get the shoes with the windswept set, which will still give you a lot of march speed as well as Cavalry sets, which is fine. But if you're at the very beginning of the game and if you only have Vanguard set, equipment wise, there is no other troop type that will be able to outperform you from green set, the beginning set. And once you actually move on to the blue set, you actually don't want to change the Vanguard set because there's no equipment in the blue set that is actually going to perform better than the Vanguard set. So so what that means is that you can actually save some of the materials that you can use for upgrading your weapon and legs to, let's say, a blue set. You can actually reallocate to crafting your epic set, crafting your whale set. But once you're actually there and you are like, hey, like I want to actually make a little bit more of an upgrade, the technical best for epic set is actually this, which means that you can actually upgrade your windswept set to the cavalry specific blue piece, which is actually pretty good. I don't think I recommend the epic helmet because I think it gives attack, and I think this one either gives defense or health. There was a reason why I actually made this and didn't really recommend moving to an epic one. Epic one for sure does give you attack, so I'm assuming that it's a stat swap that's not really worth it. But the chest piece is worth it, and this gloves, epic gloves that you can actually get from I think Ark of Osiris League, and some of the other events that you can play in the game will give you a lot of stats as well for cavalry. I think it gives you attack and health, which is not as good as attack and defense, but it's double cavalry stats, so it will give you the maximum bang out of your buck for materials that you invest on those. So those are really good. The leggings itself also is really good, even if you don't just transition right away from Vanguard set to Ash of the Dawn. The leggings set for Cavalry also gives you health, which is the best stats that you can actually find. So making an upgrade there is also really good. Given that there's no more windswept set that you can actually utilize a set bonus of, so this set right here will give you a lot of movement speed. But then again, since that you can no longer get the set bonus from that, making an upgrade to epic set is actually ideal. And building silent trial is actually really good. If you have leftover materials, you can also do the counterattack damage. You can also craft counterattack damage accessory. I forgot what it was called, but then again, yeah, you can also do that. But in pre-KvK stage, if you're actually well enough to be able to upgrade on those, I would say this is probably the as best as it gets in terms of equipment. Whether or not it's worth it to craft this set right here is actually still questionable because of the fact that nowadays crafting daggers might not be the best idea. So what I will do is actually I'll make an update here right now to the dagger, because I don't think dagger is actually the best set for you to actually work on during the pre-KvK stage or pre-season conquest stage. I think it's actually the drum. So I'll go ahead and make an update right now. Give me a second. Alright, I just made an update for the whale set. Now, the thing about whale set is that I actually gave you an order in which that I actually recommend you make an upgrade from epic set, and that is actually the chest piece is the number one piece that I would actually recommend you swapping because it is a stat swap from attack to health, and then the cavalry health chest set is actually something that you're going to use from the very beginning to until the very end of the game. You don't get a KvK piece for those, so cavalry chest number one priority. And then number two, although the helmet is actually not something that you will get an upgrade that you will use forever like the chest piece, helmet is the next recommended because of the fact that I think the cavalry blue set, just the fact that you're using a blue set and also the stat difference between the blue set to legendary set is just too much that I recommend you actually getting the helmet thereafter. And then the third is actually the Ash of the Dawn. If you're actually still working on your Vanguard set, then this will Ash of the Dawn will be probably the first priority that you should be building on. But then again, if you're on the epic set, it's a health to health stat buff change, so it is something that I do recommend that you get it right away. But then again, also, if you actually don't want to do that and you're rocking your epic health set, you can prioritize your boosts, which will also be a health swap to health, I believe. I don't think they give you, I think they give you attack or something on the epic set or defense, but it's definitely not health. So the health swap will be as important as swapping from the helmet. So make sure you get the chest piece first, and then helmet or legs, or boots, depending on what your priorities are. I think helmet is probably slightly better, but in terms of priority. But then again, helmet and boost, work them simultaneously if you can, and then move on to the Ash and the Dawn if you actually were rocking your epic cavalry set. Now from there, the gloves are actually really good upgrade because they will give you just this is a attack and health mix set, but glove will be a true just pure glove that would actually give you like a ton of health, and also at the same time gloves are actually going to be used from the beginning to the very end. So in terms of investment perspective, it is also very good. And then lastly, I'll recommend that you actually get the cavalry weapon because this is a defense, which gives you a lot of defense from using the epic set, and then moving on to a set weapon that only gives you 20% attack. Honestly, I think the all damage difference is not going to be really that significant, but it's just the fact that you can iconic tier the weapon because it's a legendary set is basically what I recommend. Uh, for the accessories, I would actually save up your materials for those just because of the fact that you're gonna move on to something like ring and horn anyways eventually. So if you really have nowhere else to put your materials to, I would say work on your drum because you'll be using that on the field later. But then again, if you want to go ahead and work on swapping from epic sets to whale set, that's just the order in which that I recommend right here, just as a guidance for you. Now, in terms of open field, I give Cavalry S tier because Minamoto is instant expertise as soon as you can actually purchase Minamoto's package from the VIP shop. And that alone puts Cavalry in an extreme advantage in pre-KvK stage. Now, Minamoto also has about 1400 damage factor plus 2300 damage factor in average for his first skill once expertise, which is a crazy single target damage that you can actually do in pre-KvK and KvK1 stage. The downside of that is that it's not an AoE, and Minamoto is a very young early game commander. It's understandable that you don't get 2300 damage factor AoE, which is fine, but 2300 damage factor expected is crazy. So that's why in pre-KvK stage, unless you see a mega infantry whale, and even if you get a mega infantry whale who can actually get Charles Martel expertise on the field, in all honesty, I don't think it's really going to be able to beat Minamoto that easily because of the fact that you don't have something like Yi Sung-ge or Richard the First to actually pair the Charles Martel with. So Minamoto field in pre-KvK stage during the time that you're actually fighting against your own kingdom gets an S tier for open field. You can use Minamoto with Ethelfled or Bybars, which does a massive AoE, or Cavalry if you want to go ahead and single target, nuke anything. So all of them are great for the build, great for the field. But then again, yeah, that's basically what I recommend for open field. Rally wise, Minamoto Cavalry is probably the best rally. It does single target damage just twice. Although his stats are not really the greatest, but he's one of the better accessible commanders in the game at this stage. You can technically run something like Minamoto Frederick, but who can expertise Frederick during pre-KvK stage? Most people can't. So Minamoto and Cao single target nuking is probably the best for rally. But Garrison though, you can technically Garrison with Mina expertise, but it's not as great as infantry. But I didn't give it a C or F because I think archers is probably the same zone at this point. Because like archer doesn't really have a good garrison commander either way. So yeah, garrison wise not so good. Overall, the S tier, the best troop type before KvK1, I think is cavalry because of the fact that you can get Minamoto expertise right away, as long as you're willing to spend for that $200-$300 worth of VIP stuff. But yeah, pretty strong. Best pre-KvK troop to focus on. I don't think this overall changes since then. But the only thing that changed off of this is actually this one right here. The fact that I now recommend having a drum. The sentiment has changed a little bit amongst people, and it is for the better. I think drum is the better equipment than dagger, especially during the fact, especially expecting the fact that considering the fact that you cannot use dagger after you enter Season of Conquest, whereas drum you can just slap it on anywhere and then just run it on the field. All right, KvK1. So KvK1 report card for Cavalry actually does take a little bit of downturn. Equipment wise, it has not changed. The legendary equipment that Cavalry has is still the best. It gives you a ton of health, many options that outclasses other ones. I think for infantry, there is 0 health that you can actually get from that infantry set. I believe even even if you actually no, if you can actually get leadership set, you might still be able to make those, but it's just the fact that leadership sets are intentionally made much worse than much worse in terms of the total stats that you actually get from those items compared to unit specific ones like Cavalry sets pieces and then Cavalry non-set pieces. Cavalry has the best equipment overall in the game, and that's going to stick throughout the whole KvK1, pre-KvK, KvK1, KvK2, and Season of Conquest. So it is just what it is. The way that they designed it is that Cavalry has the most health, which is the best stat in the game off of the equipment, and has almost no problem getting other stats as well. So equipment wise, Cavalry no doubt S tier. Armament is not available at KvK1 stage, so I'm going to go ahead and pass. Open field, Minamoto Isonge is actually really, really good. I've run this in my very first KvK. It's just that it almost runs like Poe Arthur, but with AoE at this stage. You can also argue that technically speaking, Charles Martel and Richard the First is a better primary than Minamoto for this, but given that Cavalry does have speed advantage and you can just avoid Richard the First or Charles Martel in the field on the field during the KvK1 stage, I think still Minamoto and Isange is the better pairing. If you're using Isange behind either Charles Martel or Richard the First, you can also run Minamoto Baibars and do just as good, if not sometimes in some cases better, because of the fact that Baibars does 1000 damage to 5 target in a fan, but that does not get reduced by the number of targets that it can possibly hit. So open field wise, it's good meta but replaceable. That's why I gave it an A-. Rally though, Minamoto YSG is a great rally, but contradicting rally type. So what I mean by that is it actually, most of the garrisons in KvK1 will be infantry, and that is something that we just have to accept as a fact. Infantry has the best garrison in the game, and possibly into in KvK1, and possibly into the entire Season of Conquest, KvK2, and the entire game basically. Infantry right now, infantry garrison has been the meta. It hasn't really changed, and the fact that you have to rally into your countered troop type to rally is a bit of a downside of that. So that's why I gave it a B+. It is usable. It will do the most amount of DPS, I think, at this stage, because Isange has actually 50% skill damage buff, which combined with Minamoto's crazy single target damage will just work fine as a rally. But then again, you will still need to go into infantry garrison, so which is not really good. So garrison wise, if urgent, you can still use Minamoto Isange, but it is outclassed heavily by other troop types. So I don't really recommend that you use it. So I gave it a C. Overall, Cavalry still does really well because of the fact that you get a free Minamoto. So B plus to A minus is what I gave it. And the comment is still good enough, but has no power change from pre-KvK, whereas infantry gets a huge upgrade with the fact that you can get Richard the First and pair it with YSG. So yeah, basically that's what I will give for KvK1. Now, in terms of equipment wise, though, I would actually suggest that. So this is basically what I actually suggested for the equipment building order. And then I would recommend once you actually have a full legendary set, with the exception of Silent Trial, I will get all of them iconic tier 2 and then iconic 4. I actually gave it a tier in terms of order. I would say getting the Ash of the Dawn to iconic tier 4 is the first priority because of the fact that you're going to use this piece until the very end. And also at the same time, I think the iconic 4 for this one is going to give you damage, all damage buff. And then the chest piece, again, same piece, same reason. It's going to be used until the very end. It is what it is. And on the flip side, though, weapon and helmet is still debatable because you are not going to use those at the end game in Season of Conquest if you're rallying or garrisoning at the end of the day. So I'll be very careful when when you're investing in iconic 4 or iconic 5 into your weapon and headpiece. At least the cavalry set weapon and cavalry set headpiece. That is because of the fact that you're gonna make those changes to Sacred Dominion, which is the KvK weapon for cavalry, and then the cons prior to con, the helmet for the cavalry. So I'll be really careful in those. If you are rally and garrisoning for this stage and you have to make the best efficiency out of the server, upgrading those are fine. Iconic 4, talenting, all of that stuff is fine. But I just wanted to give you a warning because you'll regret it at some point unless you got really lucky and just critted the weapon and the helmet just right off the bat. And then you can upgrade the gloves and then the shoes. Talent wise, again, I don't recommend that you talent either the helmet or the weapon unless you crit it right as you crafted them. But then again, just make sure that you talent all the other things because they will be used until the very end of the game. So just go in this order. Build a legendary pieces, build full legendary piece, get iconic 2, iconic 4, and then talent. Best march for this stage is actually Minamoto and Izange. Actually, the best march for pre-KvK is actually Minamoto and Cao, but for KvK1, because Izange is being added to the game, I would suggest that you actually go ahead and use Minamoto Izange at this stage, which will give you a ton of skill damage buff, and you'll be able to melt down anything single target as well as AoE. Alright, let's move on to KvK2. So KvK2 becomes interesting for Cavalry, to say the least. Although the equipment tier for Cavalry stays the same, it will stay the same from the beginning to the end. But unfortunately, KvK2, Cavalry does not get as good of an option for all the KvK2 commanders compared to infantry and archers. Infantry gets Alexander the Great, whose power level is almost off the chart for KvK2 commanders. And once you have Alexander the Great, like in KvK2, you can use it in Season of Conquest. So that's how powerful those commanders are. And unfortunately, what Cavalry gets is Saladin and Khan. Khan is really, really good. Khan used to be really, really good in KvK2, but because how minimal impact that he has in KvK2 stage, unless you're a mega whale, I do not recommend that you actually get Khan because you're gonna use him for KvK2 and KvK2 only. And as soon as your 30 days enjoyable time for Khan is actually over, you actually have to work on something that's Season of Conquest commander. So what I do recommend for most people is that you actually get Minamoto, and then you get Saladin from Mightiest Governor as much as possible. Get as many head pieces as possible from the Mightiest Governor event, and then just run Saladin 5551 and then use Saladin for the commander swap event once you're actually done with him in KvK2. Again, equipment wise, it's not the same. It doesn't change. Armament though, at this stage you can only use wedge because you don't really need anything else. You don't have any Delta formation commanders at this point, so wedge is the only way that you can actually go with it. The meta may change to Delta. I'm going to erase this because I think the meta is going more towards Arch, so this is irrelevant. And I'm just going to say wedge is the only formation needed. Work on Arch for future if you are rally lead. So the reason why I didn't include Garrison is because Garrison is actually still wedge for Cavalry at this stage. So for all armament pieces and chests at this point, I would say just open them for wedge. Once you have a good enough of a set, just open the other ones for arch, and see where that goes. And if you're not a rally or garrison lead, I would just say just open wedge at this point. So yep, if you're in KvK2, if you're working on armament, just open wedge. It's fine. It should be really good. There's no really telling that this is good or bad, but yeah, armament wise, the fact that you're going to only use wedge gives it a B, usable. There's really nothing much to it. Let's just go ahead and move on. Open field. Minamoto or Saladin with Isongye for the AoE and tankiness and damage is basically the way to go about it. Minamoto and Isongye pairing would actually give you most of the nuke. Saladin Isongye will give you most of the tankiness on top of being able to do AoE damage. So it's really your preference. Technically, you can use Khan and Saladin as well, but it is outclassed heavily by Alex either way, but usable with speed on the field. Again, my recommendation is don't even look at the direction of Khan. I would just say get 10 pieces for the Riders of History if you actually have leftover gems, so that you can get the 10 legendary commander sculptures. But beyond that, yeah, I don't recommend that you use Khan at all. The only use that you might be able to have with him is potentially using him as a support skill commander for Heroic Anthem, but half of the times you don't even see Khan on the field, so it is what it is. Rally wise, Minamoto Saladin is a great rally. Not the best rally though. I think the best rally at this point is actually Archers, which is Edward of Woodstock and Tom Maris. So it is an A. It's meta, but it's replaceable. So Minamoto Saladin gives you that nuking and as well as skill damage reduction from Saladin's skill. Rally is meta, but then again, not the best. And at this stage, you have a lot of people who actually are older accounts who would actually immigrate into your kingdom. If your kingdom was really active in recruiting older players, so you will see a lot of people who has Minamoto Saladin or technically Khan too, Saladin Khan, but they're still outclassed by the Archer Rally, so I give it an 8. Garrison, if urgent, you can still use Minamoto YSG or Saladin, but outclassed heavily by other troops, so don't Garrison unless you're like the only one who actually spent on your server and you have the best equipment in the server, then you might be able to do it urgently. But I think still, even if you're a class higher in terms of equipment, I think it's still better to garrison with infantry at the end of the day for KvK2. Overall, B-. Dark Ages of Cav, but still usable with rally, and open field is actually not bad too. So that's just my overall rating for KvK2 for Cavalry. Now let's actually move this along to KvK2, the final report card too. And then, all right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the talent and the iconic for and from thereafter, what you should work on from KvK 2. It's basically the same thing. After you actually iconic 4 your equipments, you can actually iconic 5 your equipments for rally and garrison. So those of you who are whaling, so this is for those of you who are whaling so hard that you actually hit iconic 5 equipment before you actually exit KvK 2. I don't even know if that's even possible, but it has to be accompanied with extreme luck and on top of like the highest ever spending possible. But it is, so yeah, it is technically possible. So I'm just gonna give you a brief rundown of how you should do it. So if you're rallying, if you're iconic 5ing in KvK 2, I'm assuming money is not the problem. So I would say weapon is probably gonna give you the best damage output buff that you're gonna possibly get, because you're gonna get about, I think, 6.5% of all damage for 2 seconds every with 10% chance of triggering with 5 seconds of cooldown. And helmet does the same, but it's for skill damage or normal damage only. So it is what it is. So weapon and helmet will give you the best power upgrade, and then iconic three the pants. I think pants give you a little bit of skill damage, I believe, which is not as good as the weapon or the helmet. And then the chest piece gives you iconic 5 chest piece actually gives you counter attack damage, which is nice, but not really good. Iconic 5 of the gloves and shoes are actually not that great at all. If you're rallying and garrisoning, I don't think they actually contribute. I think Iconic 5 with the glove only gives you troop capacity, which doesn't really matter for rallying. And then I think boost gives you like attack, like movement speed. So those two don't really matter. So you can put them at last priority. If anything, you can actually upgrade your drum if you want to make the best set for it for Iconic 5. But then again, yeah, I don't recommend for gloves or shoes. And if you're self-control whale, like I don't want to call myself self-control whale. If you're a self-control person who wants to wait for the KvK weapons and stuff, I would say just work on your pants and then chest piece first. And then if you have time and materials and blueprints left over, I would say work on the gloves and the shoes, and then don't work on the weapon and the helmet. The best pairing, again, is Minamoto and Saladin. If you just run those two on the field, is fine. If you want to put Isan get behind either of them, is fine. But if you are Mega Whale, you can also look into getting a Khan, or if you're an immigrant, you can also use that as well. So that's KvK 2. Wow, I was talking for the last 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and try to speed it up as much as possible. So, Season of Conquest report card for Cavalry. This is the final set of this. Let's just take a look at what we have. Okay, equipment didn't change. Ton of health, no need for leadership. Awesome. The best equipment that you can have in terms of Cavalry is Cavalry. Armament-wise, Wedge is the best for now, but you may need Arch and Delta for rallying. And I'm going to actually fix this. You may need Arch for Attila, Subutai, rally. You will need. So Wedge is best for now. Best for field, actually. It's not now. So what changed from last to this is actually the fact that we now have Subutai in the game. Now Subutai will require Attila and Subutai in that order, and it will actually work the best with Arch Armament, which I actually crafted very recently. So that's basically what it is. Armament wise, it's meta. Everyone's armament is gonna be meta, so it's fine. And again, which is best for field, because you want Ho and Arthur in that order for best skill damage and best outcome for the AoE damage on the field. But if you want to build your armament for Attila Subutai, Arch is the best formation for that, and not Delta. I think it's been out. Subutai has been out for a while enough for us to actually make that claim pretty clear. Open field S tier at this very moment. Cavalry has the best open field, and then the best marches, two marches are Poe, Arthur, Nevsky, Joan, or I'm gonna make an adjustment here because of the fact that actually a lot of people will be using Belly Prime. So Nevsky or Belly Prime and Joan is basically the two top tier march that will be the strongest at this current meta. And the fact that open field, Cavalry will always have advantage over other troop type because Cavalry has the best highest base speed. So that means that Cavalry can actually just hit and run every time without ever actually potentially getting damage from the enemy's skill damage or active skill damage. Whereas if you're infantry, which has the lowest march speed on the field, you don't really have that option. If Cavalry decides to run away from you, you gotta kind of let it go without being able to actually kill it. So open field wise, Cavalry does have the best advantage, and that's why I gave it an S. And the fact that Poe Arthur is just the best pairing on the field at this very moment, along with Nevsky or Belisarius Prime with Joan, will also be another top tier rally, top tier march on the field. Now, rally wise, I need to make this change. Cavalry has the best rally at this very moment. So with Subutai released, Attila Subutai is the best rally in the game. Now the rally for Cavalry is actually going to be the very best rally in the game, so hence I gave it an S tier. Before it used to be the Asher Venipal and Henry and Asher Venipal, but now Attila Subutai is the meta. We live in a meta Cavalry rally era, so I had to change that to S rank with Attila Subutai is the best rally in the game. So that's one correction that I want to give. Garrison wise, I'll just fix this to B plus because Eleanor Hera is good, but not as good as infantry due to anti-swarm. I don't think it's not as good as also. It's almost as good, I think, as Choyoung and Hera, but Choyoung could potentially have better pairing, and that's why I think Eleanor Hera and Choyoung Hera is kind of similar. But Eleanor Hera, there's no way that it will get better unless we actually see another garrison commander that does skill damage. But that may not ever happen. So Eleanor Hera is good, but in terms of swarm ability, it has the best DPS against the rally. But then again, if it gets swarmed down, it's gonna be swarmed down pretty easily. So yeah, less anti-swarm. I hope you're not catching that sound, by the way. There's someone who's doing the apartment maintenance though. But yeah, Eleanor Hera is good, but not as good as infantry due to the less anti-swarm. With that said, I'm gonna actually change the overall rating of Cavalry to S tier, given that it has the best open field right now, it has the best equipment, it has the best rally, and just overall, I think Cavalry is in the best spot for right now because the latest and greatest commander set that was released for earlier part of 2025 was the Cavalry Field Commander, Cavalry Rally Commander, and those just changed the meta completely. So with Arthur and Subutai now in the game, Cav is the best current troop type overall in Season of Conquest. So that's my conclusion for Cavalry. In terms of final set, you can see that this is the final set that I would recommend for Season of Conquest. You can potentially swap out Ring to Drum if you're not using them as your main set, meaning that you have all these, but you really don't, you only use it for the field. If you're rallying or garrisoning, I would say the Ring is still the best. And then Iconic 2 order, I gave it the what's this called? The accessories are number 1 because they give you health. And then I'm gonna assume that you already did Iconic 2 all this and Iconic 4 or 5 all the other ones. So accessories are number one, and then number two is the weapon, and then the headpiece is number three, and then the talent order though. Talent order, you really have to try to crit the horn, because the extra rage generation that you get from talenting the horn will outclass anything that talenting, like the weapon, talenting the helmet, talenting even the ring. It would outclass everything. So I would say just go ahead and try to talent the horn as much as possible, and then work on everything else thereafter. Is my suggestion. And then work on Iconic 4 for the all damage for everything, and then max Iconic 5 everything. So at this point, I'm not going to give you the order suggestion, because it really depends. I think the weapon and the headpiece gives you field damage buff, and then the other ones give you, I think, the rally and garrison damage buff. So if you're rally garrisoning, just upgrade those. If you're garrisoning, then field damage doesn't really matter. So it really depends. So I'm not going to give you a suggestion on Iconic 4 orders and then Iconic 5. So, but the order of this actually matters. So order of Iconic 2, Talent, Iconic 4, Iconic 5 is what I recommend, because of how much rage that you can generate from talenting the horn. But that's basically it. In terms of commander priority, I actually put Arthur as the first max, and then the second max for Huo, and then third max I put Nevsky. I actually would not third max Nevsky. I would just third max the Joan of Arc Prime if you have time, and then look for some other commander. So I'm gonna actually change this right now. Give me a second. Alright, so I basically made it so that you can work on your Arthur, which is going to be your very first priority, and then work on Huo so that you can have that Huo Arthur pairing on the field. Now, and then work on Joan of Arc Prime. That way, even if you get a better pairing for Arthur by the time you actually watch this and actually get to Season of Conquest, for those of you who are actually in Pre-KvK, KvK 1, KvK 2, you might actually have another Cavalry open field commander, which I think in such case it's going to be combo commander, and then you can use a combo commander with Arthur and then Huo with Joan of Arc Prime. But if you actually have extra sculptures, you can actually work on either your Nevsky or Joan of Arc or Belisarius Prime. So so that's basically it. Let me just go ahead and copy this one and then move on to the final report card. Now, Cavalry recently had a great first half of 2025, as you might have already imagined. We had the best rally lead come into the game, along with Attila, so making Cavalry excel at rally leading, and also at the same time, open field was just dominated by Huo Arthur, in my opinion. And equipment, Cavalry just has really just the best time. So I hope this was helpful for those of you who are looking to main Cavalry in Rise of Kingdoms, or if you're looking to actually work on a Cavalry march. Hopefully this was helpful. And as always, I hope this was not too boring. This is 43 minutes, guys, so I hope it was not bothering you too much. I did make some adjustments on the video itself, so hopefully that was helpful for you as well. And as always, I'll see you all on the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.